have a tremendous first guest. We're looking forward to talking to Robert Wiener from the Mount Sinai Hospital, one of the top 25 medical facilities, healthcare systems, medical schools in the country. He's a postdoctoral fellow and a scientific lead for the Atomic Force Microscopy Core, and looking forward to talking to him. Robert, great to see you today. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Stan. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So if you could give everyone a little bit of background on yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Mount Sinai Cardiovascular Research Institute and lead scientist of the Atomic Force Microscopy Core at the Icahn School of Medicine. Our lab focuses on cardiovascular disease research, where we use stem cell tissue engineering, devices and robotics, and microscopy to solve cutting-edge problems in cardiovascular disease. And I'm also a co-founder of Solaris, which is a medical device company that aims to improve outcomes for minimally invasive surgeries through computer vision systems.
Yeah, it's impressive. That's very impressive. So just based upon how you're using digital in your field and what you've seen in terms of the revolutionary technologies that have come along, talk to us a little bit about some of the emerging trends that you're seeing around the adoption of digital in medical research and diagnostics over the next 5 to 10 years.
Sure. So I think the easiest one that everybody's going to latch on to is generative AI and then the data supporting it. I think there is a lot of hype around it, and I think for good reason, that a lot of the technologies that maybe, the timeline is off on, when we're going to really achieve our ultimate goal. But I think the technologies are validated in a lot of the other game-changing products that have already hit the market. For example, ChatGPT from OpenAI, and Google DeepMind's AlphaFold. And for those of you who don't know, this is a technology that you can basically input your library or your string of DNA, and it will then predict the geometry or the fold of the protein, which is a big deal because in medicine, a lot of the ways that we leverage different types of medicines and targets is through the geometries of the protein. And it's historically been difficult to both predict this, but be able to quickly get an answer based on the DNA, what kind of structure we're going to get. So I think that's, an obvious answer. I think a really important trend in digital health is this idea of real-time medicine. And so this is through biofeedback systems like the Freestyle Libre, and there was a more commercial one called NutriSense, which I don't know if you've seen folks at the gym. It's basically a sticker that goes on the back of your arm, and it does real-time blood glucose monitoring. This was obviously a game changer for diabetics, where they would have to prick their finger all of the time, measure their blood glucose, and then decide, what it would be they're eating throughout the day, what kind of insulin they had to take. Now this is happening in real time. And I think we see a lot of similar trends from either medicine to more recreational or recreational to medicine, from the Apple Watch and from the Fitbit, where folks are tracking their health and their lifestyle throughout the day, but they're also clear medical technologies that support it, like detecting AFib. And so I think a really important trend going forward is going to be this real-time medicine biofeedback of devices that kind of have been destigmatized for folks that could wear it. But it also kind of feeds back to the doctor, where they can tell you, hey, look, you need to change these things, or even administer medicine in real time.
Yeah, that's super impressive. And then talk a little bit more about some of the successful collaborations that you've seen between diagnostic and digital diagnostics and that kind of field and larger institutions, particularly like the digital startup space and larger institutions, and what kind of successful partnerships have been melded together over the last 5 years, like you talked about, like with the CGM, the continuous glucose monitor, and the back of people's triceps and things like that. How have larger institutions in the diagnostic space worked with smaller startups?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so I think one of the examples that I can give you is less from the um, immediate diagnostic space and more on the basic translational research side. And so one of the things that we do in lab is cardiovascular disease research. We had recently, or I should say maybe 5 years ago, gotten involved with a space research project where they were trying to use microgravity as a model for accelerated aging. So when astronauts go into space, they experience something like 10 times faster aging in space than they would on Earth. And there was this great study, the Kelly twins, where they had two twins that were astronaut. They sent one up to space and then one was here on Earth, and they studied both when they got back. But the sample size is small. And so in our mission to use digital health software and basic cardiovascular science to improve diagnostics, one of the things that we want to do is get a better understanding of cardiovascular aging. And so what we did was we teamed up with this company called Space Tango that works with kind of early stage space research groups to send some of our cardiovascular organoids, which are basically just miniature hearts that we make from patients. And we sent them to space. We brought them back down. And then we study and we basically analyze different features of the aging process, but also different, potentially drugs that we could test on them to improve cardiovascular aging. And we're preparing for another launch soon.
That's amazing. That's great. And talk a little bit about more in terms of the experiences that you've seen. How does industry collaboration help advance diagnostics companies and a lot of the, a lot of the translational research that startups and that younger scientists like yourself, emerging scientists are having in the ecosystem? How are those sorts of partnerships advanced and progressed?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that industry partnerships are paramount for research, academic, and for early spinouts. I think one of the things that's important to note is that as a startup, you want to engage with industry. You don't want to try and build everything on your own. And there are experts out there that can help you become strategic partners and ultimately achieve your mission. On the flip side, when I scout potential partnerships at conferences, you want to keep in mind how large the company is. So you want to get an idea of how they're going to engage with you. But then two, ask the folks there directly. How do they engage with startups? Because oftentimes the process looks like an early stage technology will try and partner or collaborate with industry. And they'll go through something called a pilot process, unpaid pilot process, maybe co-development, and then a paid pilot. But it's really important throughout that process that while you want to engage with industry, you want to make sure that you, for lack of a better word, don't get swallowed up, and then you could stay on target with your mission.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And that's great advice. And again, just to end the conversation here, some good advice already to some of these folks that are emerging technologies and emerging researchers. And when you're looking at your experiences and you're looking at other folks around you and in the ecosystem around you, what final piece of advice would you give to emerging technologies, emerging researchers in their work to try to leverage their research and leverage some of their early evidence to help them grow their healthcare innovations?
Yeah, it's a great question. My answer is yes, do it, because it fills a huge gap. And it's a really good way for, as scientists and engineers, to have impactful work. I would say if you're really early stage and you're still in an institution or academic research institution, start learning about your tech transfer office. Learn about, what pushes their buttons, what gets them excited, how do you kind of engage with them. And then I would say start building a diverse team. So diverse perspectives, leaders, innovators, business folks. And then I think most importantly, that was really helpful to me, and going through some of the entrepreneurial programs within the New York ecosystem that gave me, kind of foundational training, was stakeholder storytelling. Learn about your ecosystem and all of the decision makers and stakeholders involved, and then figure out how to tell your story. Scientists are not very good at communicating, but through this transition into kind of spin out entrepreneurship, learn about how to do your stakeholder storytelling and get different people from different backgrounds excited about your work.
Phenomenal. Well, look, this is a great interview. Phenomenal lessons learned. Thank you so much, Robert, for joining us today, and looking forward to having you back on the show soon. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Stan.